Next up, Russell, you're there, aren't you? I did see it. Great. Going to talk through our financial report.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning all. So this is the financial report for September. I'll just cover off a couple of salient points, take the paper as read, and then happy to take any questions following that. So we have an operational deficit of 22.2 million, which is 15.6 million lower than budget. The forecast for the end of the year is at this stage an increase on where we reported last month. So it's sitting at $10.2 million at year end. So where we're looking at what's changed, what's driving that, in its summary, high-level summary, revenues, we're expecting those to be up just under 6 million and expenditure down by about 5 million. So that's building consent volumes up. I think I've mentioned before we had higher growth in the rates strike than we anticipated, so we're expecting about $1 million extra in there. Extra dividend through from TransFund by about $400,000. A slowness, so that is offset by a slowness in the Hagley Park parking fees. Assurance costs, which I've mentioned before, they're going to be significantly under budget by almost $8 million. And we've lower costs in processing fees with solid waste and resource recovery, and also a slight underspend we're projecting for payroll. That's offset by projected overspend at this point, still work to be done, but in stormwater and wastewater, and also we've incurring extra costs in illegal fly tipping within the transport activity. And said that we had extra building and planning consent volumes, so extra revenues coming through, but we've incurred extra costs in attaining that, so it's offsetting it. So overall, that we're sitting at about $10.2 million for at the end of the year. At this stage in the capital space, and more will come in the report following me, we're projecting about $31.3 million underspend in the capital programs at this point. We expect most of that will be requested to be carried forward to the following year, but that's a separate exercise. We're just flagging that at this point. Just noting that this is the September report, so it's being quarterly. It has a bit more information than is normally covered. Things like treasury, rates debt, general debt, insurance, and also the activity summaries. So just covering off a couple of those. In the rates debt, overall, it's pretty static, if slightly up a small amount, the trajectory. I just say that's probably driven by a couple of things. One, the rates amounts are higher, and two, that the level of penalties was increased a couple of years back, so that may have had a bearing on there. Just also point out that that the team worked pretty hard on getting that down and working with ratepayers to encourage them to meet their commitments as much as possible. We'd rather engage with them than be sending out overdue letters and penalties. So that's generally the focus of the team. And section 9.2, just on rates rebates, pleasing to report there's about $5.6 million in the rebates has come back through to from that's monies paid by DIA. So the rebate was increased from $750 to $790, partly in that. Within the insurance, section 11, just point out a slight error there. The estimated cost for motor vehicles is $1,500. There should be one item below excess as opposed to zero generating that. Pretty much that's the items I wanted to cover, Mr. Chair, but happy to take any questions.
Hey, thank you for that. Two things from me. The first one would be noticeable that it's good that the insurance money is at the bank account for the treatment plant. That'll help things as well. It'd be good to see how that's reported. The other one was just around, are you able to just let me know, if you think about forecasting for the rest of the financial year, in your experience, when does the forecast kind of, the closer we get to the end of the financial year, the more reliable it is. But we're sitting at a 10 mil sort of projected surplus now. are we sort of thinking by February, March, we'll have an overall flavour of what that number may look like? Give or take sort of $1 million. I guess I'm just keen to understand what's going to sit in there at year end.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's a good question. And that is the focus of where it is. So I can give the financial report. It's what happened in September. So that's 23 days ago.
Yeah.
The real focus is where are we going to be? So that is where we want to be. So that's the emphasis on the finance advisors and the business partners working with the businesses to get that as, I guess, as close to possible as early as possible. So if we need to make changes, we can. And you're right. Unfortunately, it's more solid the closer we get towards the end of the year. Yeah, and certainly we'd be better informed later in the year. February, March, we should be almost bang on, you would hope. We were surprised a bit last year. There was some stuff happened right at the end of the year, and so that was disappointing on a number of fronts. But we've made some changes and working with the business to be better informed.
Yeah.
But like I say, the focus on working for the finance team, working with the business, is to really hone in on. So if there is an underspend, or I think we want to capture that as quickly as possible. Yeah,
that's good, because one of the things, I'm just thinking back to the annual plan discussion we had yesterday, and obviously if there's projected savings within the year that aren't carried forward, we should have a conversation at some stage, Bede and Russell, about how we can potentially carry them forward for those additional costs to reduce that rates burden as we strike the annual plan. So if you think about last year, I think it was a $20 million surplus, which you could argue is 3% on the rates. And it's all because it's retrospective. I would quite like us to start thinking about how we can be forward-looking as we land that annual plan, because it will help the organisation deal with some of those cost pressures. I'm not saying take all of it, because no one prudently would do that, but actually there might be a portion that we can carry forward for some of those costs that we weren't anticipating for next year. So can we do some work on, how that would time in with the annual plan? Because I think that will just help council in their discussions as we try and land it. Okay, sorry I've taken up too much time. Tyler.
Kia ora, just a quick one here. Point of interest to me, obviously, is recreation and sport. And the chair has actually joined the gym too, so he's a valued customer also. I just wanted to ask about the variance here, and in terms of the projected forecast, is this, in terms of from a historical perspective, is this a good read? This is referring to page 78. Is this a good read on the income, or has there been better days with the recreation and sports centres, particularly with the increased participation levels that we're seeing here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly in that space, last year we saw increased numbers driving revenue up, which was the main reason. So, one of those things that I mentioned earlier came in right at the end of the year was the higher revenues in that space. And we're seeing it again here so far this year, that increased numbers are driving revenue up. How that compares with other rec and sports centres across, I couldn't answer, sorry, I would need to come back.
Okay. Do we know what kind of customers come through the door? Nigel will probably be able to answer it in the unit at some point.
We encourage paying ones.
Maybe take that away as a bit of info for Nigel to...
What I'm wanting to hone in on is how much is the pool costing us and how much are we losing on it and or making profit off it?
Yeah. Well,
I'd love to see the variance within that.
So for context, when we went through COVID, our drops in revenue were quite significant because we had a fixed cost portion. So it was actually quite a financial impact on us. So they're quite good little units to have. Yeah.
Cool.
I can say that because I use Jelly Park. Okay, so any other questions? Tyler, you happy to move this?
Yep.
And Mark looks like he's happy to second it. Thank you, Russell. All in favour? That's carried. Okay, Nikki, do you want to come up for the capital program report, and Paul?